Okay, hey everyone, welcome back to the Cartoon Pad, and it's good to hear everyone. We have a really good show today with my co-host Michael Shaw, my producer Marty. Michael, happy anniversary!
What'd you get me?
Well, it's the 100th episode of the Cartoon Pad.
Ah, I was expecting roses, but that's fine.
Our producer's holding up two hands, indicating that this is actually the 10th episode. But
The
I know,
10th.
yeah, but I know that we'll be taping like about 90 episodes before we air this one. So we're getting it
I
lined up
think
correctly.
I think
It
this
only
is
feels like it's been 100.
I think this is the 10th episode.
All right, I'm going to make a confession. I got to tell you, I do feel like I'm not up to doing the podcast. Am I the right person to do it? Whatever. But then I had a day like yesterday where I was in touch with about 10 different cartoonists, including I spoke to Raj Chaz and Sam Gross, and everybody was kind of giving me their whole crust of what's going on in their world, in the cartoon world and stuff. And I got to tell you, after a day like yesterday, I do feel like I'm qualified to do this podcast because I feel like I'm in touch with this cartoon community.
You are in touch with the cartoon community. You have your finger on the pulse of the cartoon community.
No, and it's interesting to hear what everyone's take on everything is. I mean, like, for instance, Michael, it seems like everybody's unhappy. I really want to know, is it possible for a cartoonist to be happy?
I don't think that's limited to cartoonists. Trust me. I mean, you got Chainsaw Al outside.
Yeah, I'm not going to get him upset. But I
Yes.
mean, it was really great to hear from everyone. And I
And
do
the fact that they're unhappy.
yeah, no, I don't want that. But well, what happens is that on Fridays, people who made a sale contact me. A lot of people are excited. You know, they get an okay and they give me a call and they want to share it. For some people, it's been a while. And that's my Friday, which is a little bit tricky because I'm someone who has not been making any sales. So for me to kind of field all these calls from people who got okays, it's a little awkward.
You can bask in their glory.
I am happy for them. And I'm happy for when someone like you gets an okay or something.
Yes, I didn't give you a call, so you can, find solace in that.
Well, then you and me can both say that we
Did you,
understand our
Bob?
audience.
Did you submit today?
I did. I
Okay.
submitted.
You can't be rejected if you don't submit.
No, I agree. But you and me can understand a good portion of our audience who's going through the pain of trying to make that sale. For some people, it's their first sale, or whether it's a long time. But I do feel like I kind of have a sense of what it's like out there. It's tough.
Yes, and as we are submitting every day, and to those people who are also submitting, trying to make their first sale, I would advise them to stop because I don't need that.
And as you always told me, if you could dodge a wrench, you could dodge a ball.
That's true.
I don't know what that means, but I always.
And when you get
that.
a new hammer, everything's a nail.
It was really great to speak with Sam and Rosin and all these other people. And I want to mention that Sam is someone who is on our show already. So if people want to go back and check out that episode, we actually had him on as a guest. So where do you steal? I mean, get your ideas, Michael.
The drawing board.
Back to the old drawing board.
No, the new drawing board. Cartoonist run agency that teaches the persuasive techniques used by New Yorker cartoonists for almost any marketing or communication strategy.
Wait, we have techniques?
Technically speaking, yes.
Well, I'd love to be more creative and come up with better ideas.
And learn how to connect those ideas with your client's communication goals.
Hey, that's a great idea.
Just go online to the drawing board at cartoonist.com and learn how to think like us.
But smarter.
Now, back to the cartoon pad.
Good idea, Michael. And thanks to the drawing board, our new sponsor. So, Michael, anything in particular you're working on that we could kind of spitball?
No.
Come on, don't be shy.
I I am not a typically not a topical cartoonist. I'm not typically topical, but once in a while I will attempt topical humor and sometimes tropical humor. But I like the evergreen cartoon that can live for years and can pop up anywhere.
Well, don't you miss the rejection every day? I've been submitting to the daily cartoon every day.
Uh, good, good for you, Bob. No, I don't submit every day. I don't do the daily cartoon. I leave that to you upstarts.
Okay, so let me tell you what I submitted today.
Yeah, let's hear about it.
This was my daily. And again, I've been submitting every day to the daily and stuff. So it's been a rough going, but this is what we got. We got Moses coming down from the mountain talking to the masses. And he's
Boy, that's topical.
Yeah, no, this is very, very topical. And this is also I don't think this has ever been done before because he's holding the tablets. Okay. And he has them over his head and he goes, "What I saw, I can't explain. It might have been a UFO." Now, okay. So
well, I could tell you why it will get rejected if you're interested.
Really? All right.
Yeah.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Well, the term UFO didn't exist yet. So that's going to be a disconnect.
Yeah, but there's been news lately about the government knowing more information about UFOs. That's been kind of like,
oh, you've been talking to Marissa too much.
Well, yeah, she told me there's UFOs left and right, and they date back to Moses' time. So I figured
that's right.
This is not only funny, but it's educational.
I was into a cartoon of, you know how you've done these too. Like I've never quite done the typical Martian in the flying saucer with a bubble, but the Martian is flying down and the Martian is giving Jesus a lift back to Earth. So Jesus is saying like, "Thanks for the ride."
No, I like that.
Yeah, because he's got to get to Earth somehow. So he might as well hitch a ride with a Martian.
So why were you busting my balls about UFOs not existing when Moses, but Jesus, who argue the point that he is after Moses. Moses came earlier. You're saying in between that time is when UFOs became more known?
No, I'm saying if Jesus comes back to Earth, he might come back in a UFO, in a Martian spacecraft. Why not? He can do whatever he wants.
I have a cartoon hanging over me right now in my computer, framed. It's a Michael Maslin cartoon, UFO landing back on the planet Earth. And there's a little wallet in front of the spaceship. And the space alien goes, "Yep, it's right where I left it."
Yes. Bob, you told us about that one last time.
A lot of people didn't get it. So I'm trying to.
I still don't get it. No, I did another Martian one, which I like. Okay, I will do topical cartoons, but so the Martians are sitting there and there's the rover, and I think it's the old lunar rover. I didn't want to redraw it. And there's a rock right there, and the Martian's saying, "For Pete's sake, just hand it the rock."
Now, could you not work in the Apostles? Why are they not in this?
Lord, you're hard sell. You like to pack your cartoons with nuance and information.
Well, you know what it is I started out doing cartooning for American Magazine, which is the leading Catholic magazine in the world.
Oh my.
And all my cartoons were religious. So I was constantly looking for this twist to include religion. It was always Jesus, Moses, the whole bag.
Yes.
So that's where I'm coming from.
I enjoy doing classic religious cartoons, not because I'm making fun of religion, but just because it's hard to disprove it may or may not have happened, but it's still funny.
No, so, I agree with you.
Adam nicknames the animals. So he not only gives them names, he gives them nicknames. So Porcupine is Mr. Spiky McSpikeface, or the skunk is Skunky McSkunkbutt. So, and then he names the colors, and then you just keep naming things.
Well, I'll add that your cartoon with Moses and burning bush is my favorite all-time religious cartoon ever done, and it's in our book, Elements of Stress, and it's the one in which he is accusing the Lord as being a drama queen.
Yes. Interestingly, my brother came up with that caption, and I had a whole bunch of drawings. I said, "Here, come up with some captions as long as you're here." And then he looked at it and he said, "Oh Lord, why art thou such a drama queen?" And I said, "Ka-ching." So he submitted it, or we submitted it. I gave him credit because his last name is Shaw also. So it says Shaw. So he should be happy.
Exactly.
Didn't pay him, but
No, he didn't deserve anything.
No.
So let's bring our next guest, who is a writer, speaker, teacher, artist, and cartoonist. He has spoke at the Smithsonian, at TEDx, a number of prestigious venues, and produced a popular Rejection Collection book. His last book, Hand-Drawn Jokes for Smart, Attractive People, was an NPR Book of the Year. The National Cartoon Society has selected him Gag Cartoonist of the Year. We could talk about his other accomplishments as we go along. Welcome, Matt Diffee.
Thank you.
Matt, how are you doing? Where are you right now?
I'm in my basement studio in Los Angeles, California. Echo Park, to be specific. Up on top of I guess it's a hill, but it feels kind of like a mountain. It's high up, except I'm in the basement, which is rare for an LA house because
yes, a basement in Los Angeles. I say Los Angeles.
Yeah, you sound like a douche.
Yes, and I eat my vegetables. So I heard you were living in Austin.
I was in Austin for 2.5 years or something, and I probably would have stayed there, but my wife couldn't handle the heat.
I thought it was Austria.
Oh, Austria. Did you say Austin or Austria?
I heard were you in both?
I was in Austin years ago, and I was in Austria months ago.
Oh, see, I was trying to set up an Austria joke by talking about Austin.
Well, then, there was probably a relation.
You didn't go there. You've been in both places.
Yeah.
Oh,
are you working through? Are you working through the alphabet?
Yeah.
I mean, if you go into Baltimore next,
I don't know what's next. Australia, and then
Australia. Call us when you get to Zanzibar.
Yeah, it'll be a while. If I spend just minutes in each airport, I'll make it. What did you guys do for the pandemic? Did you stay in your own homes?
Well, yes, I never left my basement.
Yeah.
I mean, I came up and said, "What pandemic?" It's all the same to me.
Yeah. It kind of was. For a cartoonist, it was kind of, just more of the same.
Isolation, paranoia, basement dwelling. It's all good.
It smells. Yeah.
And I'm in the woods in Pennsylvania. But you knew that because we did a talk in last year from the Milford.
Not that long ago. That was probably the last thing I did.
But you swore off all public appearances after your experience with me. I'm sorry.
That was the last straw.
And I like your collection back there of wooden frames.
Yeah, that's old canvases that I used to be a real artist. And sometimes I am still, but those are old canvas stretcher bars stacked in a vertical fashion there. Some of them are half finished and some of them are not stretched even yet.
Do you assemble them yourself?
Some of them I have. Some of them I remember when I lived in that 57 Thames Street, Thames, I guess, if you were from England. It was an artist building, and so I would always find stretchers and canvases in the dumpster of young artists that gave up and moved back to wherever. So a lot of these are
their failure was your gain.
Huh?
Their failure was your gain.
Yep, free canvas stretchers.
So do you have a BFA?
I do not. Wait, BFA, what's the less than that? BS?
That would be a BA.
I have a BS degree in art.
Wow, that's unusual because usually
it's really a BS degree.
I have a BS degree in cartooning for BSing. No, I actually do have a BFA, and as a painter, I discovered I was a fairly good waiter.
Yeah. I did a little of that too. I worked at Applebee's for 2 weeks because it was a 2-week trial, and then they kindly asked me to leave. I was crying too much.
Just fill up your grocery bag and go.
Yeah, I did my time doing all that stuff.
What's funny is that the two of you started at the New Yorker the same way.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'd been there for years.
You're at the contest?
Yeah. Well, wait, you were in a contest?
Yeah, you were too. But you had you been submitting already?
Oh yeah, for like 2 years.
Okay. Yeah,
I've completely put that out of my mind, but I'd like to like go through my spoken word bag of memorabilia from the evening.
Is that from the night? Wow.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's a quick recovery, Michael, from not remembering anything to
I
having
know.
the swag bag right there.
We can tell the story. We got to set this up a little bit.
Oh, I know.
Please
I
do,
mean,
Michael.
You go.
Okay. Well, I did a moth story you can look up about sort of a half fictionalized version of this. But yeah, I was in Boston at the time trying to be a stand-up comedian, and turns out I wasn't that much of a performer, so I was starting to write jokes for other comedians. But I was always an artist, and I wanted to do that, and I never thought about cartooning. I was 29 years old, and one night I think it was Nightline or somebody was doing sort of a special about New Yorker cartoonists, and I tuned in, and I was like, I kind of know about this. I've seen them in dentist office or whatever. And they were saying that the next issue was going to be an all cartoonist, the cartoon issue. I think it was the first ever they did. So I went and picked up that issue thinking, hey, I like drawing and I like jokes. Maybe I could look into this. So I picked up the issue, and inside there was an announcement for a cartoon contest that Bob Mankoff, the cartoon editor, was going to be the judge of. It was going to happen at the Algonquin Hotel. And you had to send in, Michael, you can correct me if I'm getting any of these details wrong, but you had to send in cartoon ideas about hotel life. That was the topic I think they gave us.
Right. The Algonquin had just been purchased, and it was actually a promotional campaign. And they asked for cartoons about hotels.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'd been submitting for like 2 years before that. And actually, my mother-in-law saw it. She says, Michael, you should enter this contest. And I go, I'm not entering a contest. I'm trying to be a professional cartoonist, please.
Yeah.
So I sent in 35 cartoons, each one worse than the other.
Really? I sent in 8, I think. I was already writing jokes kind of as a practice, sort of like sitting down and actually writing. So it was like, I'll just turn my attention to, jokes that would work as cartoons. But I had no idea how to draw a cartoon. These were the first ones I'd ever done. And it was pretty interesting sort of moment. There's several moments in my life where I kind of felt like well, I mean, there's a lot that I felt overly optimistic, but they didn't happen. But there were a few that I just this is too good to not happen. This is just too crazy or too random. And anyway, I felt good about it, sending him off. I was like, I'm going to win this thing.
Very good. I said, I can't do this, but I'll just do it anyway. And and then all of a sudden I got a letter, and we were one of 3 winners.
Yeah.
The other one was, I was an actual cartoonist.
Who was it?
John Grimes.
John Grimes.
Yeah, I haven't heard from him since, but
was he there that night?
Yes, he was very sophisticated, and you were an interesting character back then.
I was a bumpkin.
I called you the barefoot pilgrim. You came in, I go, are you gonna hang out? And you said, no, I'm not a cartoonist. I go, you might be in the wrong spot then.
Yeah, I'd never done any cartoons before that, and I entered those, and then we got invited to the Algonquin Hotel, which was the fanciest thing I'd ever done at that point.
Yes, it was a weekend, all expenses paid.
Mm-hmm.
And my brother-in-law was living in New York at the time, and he was like a financial guy. So I go, wow, I can invite him to the Algonquin, and we'll do everything. So we went to the Oak Room. We ordered every meal. We went to the bar. We went to see, I think her name was, we went to the show. I can't remember who was at the show. And at the end, they go, oh, you have some ancillary payments. You owe us something. And I I said, "Uh-oh, they're going to get me for everything." And they gave me a bill for like $9.
Oh,
So anyway, so I abused the privileges that you didn't take advantage of.
yeah, I did not either. Yeah, I remember being like, well, it's just, I mean, coming from where I come from, that was like the most amazing thing. All that dark oak paneling everywhere and the like copper lampshades. At least this is the way I remember it.
Yes.
And the round table where, you know, Dorothy Parker and Robert Benchley and all that crowd used to gather and wisecrack. And then when you went up in the hallways, the wallpaper was like a custom print of all New Yorker cartoons.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I wasn't sure if I.
No, you're exactly right. And Thurber spent many months living there.
Oh yeah.
And when he was like either on a bender or he'd been thrown out of the house or he refused to come home, and he would live there for weeks on end and just write and wander the streets of New York with his cronies. And at the end of the day, he would just take his shirts off and throw them in the closet. And when he ran out of shirts, instead of going to the laundry, he would get a different room. And famously, so I was way into the Thurber stuff, of course.
Yeah.
And I was just
half of what I should have known at that point. And I just remember seeing the wallpaper and I was like, oh wait, this is maybe even a bigger thing than I thought. Yeah, it was just a very heady moment for me. And being there and meeting Roz Chast, and I think Sam Gross was there, and of course Mankoff. I think some others were there too. And
it was Arnie Levin.
Arnie Levin, yeah.
Pete Steiner.
Yeah.
Mick Stevens and Mankoff.
Okay, I thought Roz was there.
Yeah, Roz was there too. Right.
Oh, okay.
Sam wasn't.
Sam was not there. Okay.
No. As far as I know,
Sam just an emblem of all New Yorker history for me. But anyway, that was really cool for me, and that started it all. And after that, you know, Bob at some point, I don't know if he came up to me or if I came up to him. Probably he came up to me and said, "Have you been submitting?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Oh, you ought to." And that was really the beginning of my cartooning career.
Yes, you got in like a month later, right?
Yeah. I started submitting right away, and I was. You guys will get a kick out of this. I was going to be like really on it, and so I sent 3 a week, thinking, "Oh, he'll love this." And then he told me kindly, "Yeah, everyone else is sending 10 a week." And so I upped the game. Then I did 15 a week because I wanted to impress him and be the like eager young kid and work my work ethic snapped in. And I sold 4 the first year of doing 15 a week. And then it gradually got better.
There were actually 3 winners, and you were winner number 1, I remember. Mm. And I was winner number 2, and Grimes was winner number 3. And Bob had lost all the cartoons, so we never saw them.
Yeah.
And yours was a sign too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a couple inside the hotel room, like they just set their bags on the bed and kind of turned to leave, and the do not disturb sign is hanging on the inside of the knob for you to use to put on the outside. And so the guy is saying, "Oh, great, now we're stuck in here." So
there you go.
We're not
and mine, interestingly, mine was just a poorly drawn door on the outside of the door. And the sign was hanging there, and it said "already disturbed."
That's good.
So we were mining the same vein.
Yeah, signs have been very good to me. I've often found that something's a little bit funnier if it's in a sign.
I agree.
Off to the side instead of somebody saying it. And there's something about the official language of signage that makes it ripe for a little twist that makes it funny.
We were Bob. Oh, Bob left.
No, I'm still here.
Bob.
I'm talking to John Grimes on the side.
Yes, thank you. Have you ever done a "Welcome to Texas" sign?
I have.
Of course.
Oh, me or Bob?
We all.
I saw yours.
Yeah.
Yours is "Welcome to Texas."
Last vegan pizza for 778 miles or something.
Right.
Is the actual width of Texas, which is insane, right? That's really, I don't know what it is, 700 and something.
Yeah, depending on where you cross.
At the widest point, yeah.
I can think of a whole bunch of Matt Diffee cartoons that are just sign driven.
Yeah, I do a lot. Or even signs, like I call it a sign, even if it says like on the back of the truck, the big diesel, if it says, whatever it says, Joe's Trucking Safety Third. It's not a sign. It's a text within the context of a real world sort of situation. You know what I mean? It's on the side of a truck.
I do know.
We know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
I kept doing this one. It said, "Welcome to Texas," and it's the very official "Welcome to Texas" sign, the exact one you would draw. And then underneath it says, "Welcome to Texas, you lucky sumbitch."
That's a good one.
That's the right answer. You could sell that to Texas Monthly or
I'll sell that to Texas
or something. Yeah.
Matt, when you
from Texas, I don't know if people are already gathering that, but yeah, I grew up outside of Dallas, Denton, Texas. Or if you're from Denton, I grew up outside of Shady Shores, Texas.
Matt, when you first started, did you have a cartoonist that you kind of was your number one guy or gal that was kind of inspiring you?
Well, I mean, once I got into the New Yorker world, once I became aware of that, which was, embarrassingly late, George Booth was the guy for me. There's something about his country sensibility and those, dogs laying around everywhere. But before that, honestly, it was Gary Larson. He was the first real cartoonist that I laughed at in a way that I was like, oh, that's cool to be able to do that, would be impressive. That was when I was into a huge like Monty Python fan as well. And there's something similar there in the absurdity of that voice.
Yeah.
But he was first.
I just heard that George is doing okay. My friend David Borchardt just had dinner with him.
Yeah. I know
so
David.
he's okay. He's in Brooklyn.
What has something happened recently?
No. It's just that he's with his daughter and his wife. Yeah. Everything is fine. I was just sharing with Marty and Michael that I just heard from Roz and Sam yesterday.
Yeah.
Everyone seems to be doing okay. And they all say hello to you. I told them they'll be talking to you and they're all excited about that. Yeah.
I miss all of those. It was such a nice decade or so when I was in New York and everyone was going out to lunch after Tuesday drop off. That was a nice gang. And I think doing the Rejection Collection books, was also kind of I've had a feel of like doing something together, a community project, like the kids in the basement, showing their rejects. Anyway, it was a nice, I miss it. I miss New York.
Matt, did you pitch that idea to somebody or?
What, the Rejection Collection?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had the idea at some point, and a comedian friend of mine, Patrick Borelli, who is now a late night, comedy writer. How was he connected? He was dating somebody who was working in the office of David Kuhn, who was, an agent who used to work at the New Yorker. And so I, through that, got it to him, and he liked the idea. And, it's got that kind of whatever sexy hook, the Rejection Collection, stuff that you do.
Yeah, it's a nice handle.
Yeah, so he helped me shape the proposal, and we, got a bunch of cartoons from people and then sent it around and got actually an auction, and a bunch of publishers wanted it. So it was a big success, and it's all been a slow slide down from there. But we're doing it again.
I think this podcast will mark the ascendancy.
Yeah, we'll look back and say, remember when I was painting that sport coat? That's really when I got on people's radar again, and just things took off. Now we're doing another Rejection Collection. The Workman later on we did 2 hardcover Rejection Collection books, and then Workman came in and did a paperback sort of mashup of the 2, sort of the best of the Rejection Collection, and they're doing a new one of that. And I'm gathering material for it now. We're going to put 20% new material in there, and then hopefully that'll kickstart the brand, and we'll do more after this.
And I understand it was very popular in Germany.
Yeah, they did a German version and a French version. And that was interesting because, all the cartoons that had handwritten text in it had to be re-handwritten, translated, and then re-handwritten.
And in Germany, they're called Der Schitten cartoons.
You're right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Matt, Germans don't have any sense of humor. I'm married to one, so I can say that.
That's funny. Matt, that's how I met you. I met you when you were doing that book, and I was doing a book at Simon Schuster. Because we were sharing. Yeah, and we were sharing the same editor and the same marketer, Jennifer Robinson.
Yeah. Yeah, they did a good job with that first book. And the second book, it just didn't, just the sexiness worn off, but that's the way things are.
And you were a cartoon editor in the middle of this. You actually was doing some cartoon editing at Time magazine. You had a stint.
Very short-lived. I edited these things, and I guess that put me at people's mind as an editor. And then I got a call or something. I don't know. I remember how it happened, but yeah, they wanted to run a page of sort of single-panel gag cartoons in Time magazine at one point. And so I tapped a bunch of the cartoonists, and we tried to make it different from the New Yorker. Do it in color and do speech bubbles instead of captions beneath, just little tweaks like that, and try to do more timely stuff. And we did it. I think we did it about 10 weeks. I don't know if they ran all 10 weeks of it, but
yes, I remember. And I said, "This is so strange."
Yeah. In what way was it strange to you?
Sometimes I think putting multiple cartoons on a page, they just kind of compete against each other too much. Yeah. And there's all different. I want to say, did Dan Collins? There are the cartoonist I knew from Hustler. I think he was selling. It was a real mishmash.
Yeah, I didn't want.
Of course, I never sold anything, so the hell with it.
It was important that it wasn't just like all these New Yorker cartoonists jumping over to Time. I wanted to branch out and bring in other people.
Yeah, it's like five color cartoons on the same page is a lot to kind of.
Yeah,
they don't sit well together. They don't play well together.
I ended up doing a lot of the coloring, and I had to try to keep that in mind to sort of pick a palette that would sort of make them work together in a way. But it was always kind of a nightmare of arranging them, and some cartoons can run small, and then others have to be a certain size to get the detail, the joke. So it was a challenge. I thought we did pretty well with it, and I don't know why exactly it didn't work. They just decided not to do it after a few weeks.
Well, even at Esquire, Mankoff couldn't get cartoons to work there either. So it's just hard to make that stuff stick, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know why that is. I wonder if it's just like the New Yorker is now the only place people think of that does it. So if anybody else is doing it, it just sort of feels almost like derivative, or it's just I don't know. Maybe the New Yorker wouldn't do it if they hadn't done it for so long.
My theory is when you're on page 4 of a in-depth study of soybeans, you'll look at anything.
Yeah.
Now, Matt, for a long time, actually, because of that stint at Time, I think it was fueled a little bit by that. There was always this long time, there was these rumors among the cartoonists that you would be the next cartoon editor at the New Yorker.
Yeah, I'm aware of that rumor. And Bob and I had some conversations about it. He wasn't ready to step down, but he did sort of feel me out a little bit about it. But mostly, he was saying it's really not as good as you think. You're not going to have as much fun as you would at, editing the Rejection Collection or something else. There's just a lot more, sort of organization to it. I won't say corporate.
And there's even more rejection.
Yeah. Yeah. And it would be, I'm not going to say that I wouldn't have loved to have done that, because I would have, but there definitely would have been some changes in my relationship with other cartoonists. Because can you imagine? Bob did it, but Bob doesn't mind being a jerk sometimes, I think, or kind of enjoys it. I would feel really bad all the time.
Or everyone would be kissing your ass.
Well, that would be great. No, I would not like that either. I don't know. It would have been cool to do it. And there was a window where I maybe would have done it if Bob left. According to Bob, I don't know what Remnick thought about it. He was maybe pissed off at me for doing the Time magazine thing, or even the Rejection Collection. I don't really know, but I don't know. But it didn't happen. And then I was no longer that, interesting 30-something-year-old person to take on the reins, and times changed. But yeah, it never happened. And if it had happened, I wonder I guess I'd still be there making good money.
I don't know. It's always the person that comes after the long timer that is like the bounce back person.
Yeah.
So,
well, Matt,
there's still a chance.
Well, Matt, are you doing cartoons now?
No, I'm not doing anything right now. For the last couple of years, I've kind of taken a step back. I don't really miss it, weirdly. I did it for 20 years. 10 a week, every week. You just get a little burnout from it. And
a lot of people ask. That's like one of the 2 top questions I get from everyone is Matt doing cartoons?
Yeah. I'm not right now. I'm not doing anything. If I had a place to do them where I didn't have to do so many and get so many rejected, I would probably be interested in that. A place where I had my own sort of spot to do something. It wouldn't even have to be that well paid if I just could do what I wanted and put it out there. I would like that. But you know, there's a whole new generation coming in, and I don't want it bad enough to get in their way. And it was a natural sort of nice time to semi-retire and do some other things, you know, some things that I probably would never do if I was selling cartoons constantly, because as much as it's a part-time job, it really is a full-time job. I had a hard time doing much else on the side when I was really, really, really focused on it and cranking out cartoons all the time.
Man, I always had a full-time job, so it's hard for me to even keep up.
I can't imagine, honestly, doing it that way, because you have to just have tons of dead time where you don't look like you're working, right? You're just like strolling around in your pajamas, sipping coffee, maybe pick up the guitar, banjo, strum it a little bit, and then work for 30 minutes and then watch some true crime. And then you just, honestly, I'm not even really joking. I think that is really part of the process.
Yes.
That, you know,
and you have to work through
pressure. Like I've got an hour. That just kills the creative process. I think it puts you in a mindset that isn't open, and yeah, that's what I believe anyway. So
no, Michael, what I was going to
children's books now, that seems to be the nice thing. I have a 5-year-old, and reading a bunch of books with him, it get you in that frame of mind. It's something I always wanted to do, even before cartooning. In my 20s, I took some really amateur stabs at it. So that's where I'm headed now, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Can you share more about the children's book projects?
Yeah, I'm just working really hard trying to learn the craft. I'm not taking it, you know, a lot of people I think it's simple and you know, anybody can do it, but I have a lot of respect for great children's book writing and illustrating. And so I'm taking, you know, time to really get good at it. And instead of like doing my first idea and going out with it, I've done maybe 10 or 12 picture books, and I'm working on a longer book now. And I've approached some agents and got a lot of rejection, but I have a couple that are sort of interested in the first stuff I sent and want to see more. And they're saying the right things for me. Like I want to wait until I'm ready. I want to make the best first impression kind of into that industry. And I'm willing to wait. I'm not in a rush. So yeah, I'm working up more ideas and rethinking the old ones and just, yeah. I've got a nice target audience here. My 5-year-old is always good for reading stuff too. So
Dad, hate it. So is your drawing aesthetic the same? I mean, you're not changing it for the...
No, it'll be totally different probably by the time I figure out what I'm going to do. Right now, I've got like 20 different visual styles going on. I studied art. I was an artist, you know, before cartooning. So cartooning is a very specific, what I do for the New Yorker is a very specific style that I came up with for them. But I'm always amazed that people, you know, out in the world, they're like, they come to me, oh, you can do color? They're like kind of shocked. And I'm like, oh man, I did color way before I did any, like I started at the New Yorker at 30. So I had like 2 decades of doing every kind of other art. So I do painting and abstract painting and really tight realism and, you know, illustrative stuff. So the problem is having too many styles right now.
Didn't you create a cart for Texas Monthly?
Did I create a cart?
Carp.
A carp.
I thought you were drawing a fish at one time. I remember a story.
It was not a carp. It was way more scary than that. It was like the nightmare of my childhood, living in Texas and swimming in ponds and creeks and stuff. It's called an alligator gar.
I know the alligator gar.
Okay, here you go.
They're good eating.
They're like 9 feet long, and they're like really sharp, like a mouthful of razor sharp teeth. They're actually not dangerous at all to humans, but Texans still like to shoot them with bows and arrows. But anyway, they're very terrifying looking. So in Texas Monthly, I did a monthly page for them for a while called the Critter Page. And I would just draw and I would do a nice illustration of each Texas critter, and it would be formatted in the form of an interview. those were a lot of fun to do. So it was like our correspondent Diffie caught up with Armando the armadillo behind the Denny's in Fort Stockton, Texas, and he had these things to say, and so it was all just like facts mixed with jokes, told from the voice of these animals. It was fun, but that was a chance for me to do some of them. My first plan was to be a wildlife artist. Growing up in Texas in the woods, and I wanted to be like a duck stamp guy.
Did you ever fish Louisville Lake?
Yeah, I lived right near Louisville Lake.
Well, I got to tell you, crappie are good on minnows and jigs around brush piles and creeks. I found the fishing report for Louisville Lake, so I thought I'd give it to you.
Yeah. When I was there, we called it Lake Dallas, and then halfway through my childhood, they changed it, so it was hard to adapt to that. Still, when I hear you say it, I'm like, I don't know that one. Oh, Lake Dallas, yeah. Yeah, there's another little town called Lake Dallas where we used to go to church. It's all right there in the lowlands around the lake. That's where we lived. And our backyard, there was a whole bunch of government land that used to flood whenever the lake would flood. And
you could go noodling for catfish.
Yeah, I never did that, but
Bob did.
I'm a noodler. Matt, do you go up to Maine anymore?
Yeah, I haven't this year, obviously, but Maine is on the way to Canada.
That's what we hear.
I have a piece of property up there on an island, but I don't. They're not letting people into Canada right now, but hopefully they will. But years ago I was in New York, and I was kind of sick of living in the city and wanting to move out, and so I was thinking about buying a place. And so I started looking north of the city. I looked like an hour north of the city, and I was like, no way I can afford this. 2 hours, and I was like, I still can't afford this. 3 hours. And at that point, I was like, well, I might as well move to Maine if I can be 3 hours north. So in one website, I found a private island for sale in a lake in Maine. And I was like, oh, that would be so crazy. That would be cool. And then from there, it linked to a whole website. I imagine it's still there, privateislandsonline.com. And you could go and search like any part of the world if you wanted to buy a private island, like me and Johnny Depp and some others that want to do that. And I ended up finding a bunch in the coastal waters off Canada. And me and my wife, girlfriend at the time, just were like, this will be a fun road trip. We'll drive up and look at these properties as if we were going to buy an island. But yeah, it's a tiny little 5-acre island off the coast of New Brunswick, Canada. And I bought it, 15 years ago or something. I don't know how long ago. And then gradually, bit by bit, have built a cabin up there.
Did you get the basement poured yet?
Not yeah. Yeah, I need a big basement, like a tiny cabin, and then like
gotta have a basement poured.
Basement. Yeah,
for the walkout
is an underground secret villain's lair. No, it's been so hard because like everything, first of all, I don't know anything about boats, so I had to buy a boat and learn how to drive it and not die in the ocean. And then I had to buy a truck to tow the boat. And that was like the first summer. And then you have to buy a bunch of materials to get to the island. And my boat wasn't big enough. So then you have to rent another guy's boat. And then there's not a dock on the island. So you got to load stuff into my boat from his boat and then carry it up the rocks on the side of anyway, that's been my life.
I think you got a book there.
There probably is. How to build a cabin on an island in 7,000 easy steps.
Mr. Diffee builds his dream house.
That's kind of been what it was. I've got a tiny little 1-room cabin with a loft for sleeping, and I've got a really big deck. The deck is bigger than the cabin and it overlooks the ocean. And dang, it's pretty nice. I miss going there. The problem was I finally built the cabin, and then we had a kid. I was like, oh, we're going to take our infant camping on a remote island. That'll be great. So I had to wait basically 4 years really, until I could bring the kid. And my wife wouldn't come again. She loves it. But when you had a little kid, she couldn't come. So that was the years where I was just going out there by myself, finishing up projects. And now we took the son last summer. Well, I guess not last summer. I don't know. I lost track of time, but we took him out there when he was 4, and he just absolutely loved it. So I'm excited to go out there and build something there with him, but now we can't go. Hopefully they'll free it up in the end of the summer, and we'll get to go.
You can channel your internal E.B. White
Yeah. And not John McCloskey. What's his name? McCloskey, the children's book illustrator, writer, did Make Way for Ducklings and Blueberries for Sal. McCloskey, Robert McCloskey. He lived on an island way up there somehow, apparently.
Matt, does the tides ever get so low that you could just skip the boats and walk over? Because we talked about this years ago, and it's in an area where the tides are really extreme.
Yeah, they're the most extreme in the world, they say. There's one place in France that's like sort of similar, but yeah, it's like a 30-foot tide change at the worst, at the full moon or whatever. So yeah, my island actually is probably 6 acres when the tide's low, but it's all mossy rocks. But yeah, and the reason what's dangerous about that is that with that tide surging in and out, the currents around my island are really, really strong. So for a non-boater boating around those places, it's a little treacherous. I used to go around a different way, and we would hit like weird, like where the tide is coming one way, or I guess the tide. I don't know what was happening, but 2 water forces were hitting, and like these standing waves of like 6 feet tall were just like standing in one place. You'd have to go into this stuff, and it was adventurous.
I agree with Michael. It sounds like a children's book.
Yeah, a scary one.
Or a Stephen King novel.
Yeah. Well, that's funny. We used to go through Bangor, which is kind of like the nearest American town to it. It's still 3 hours away, but we used to fly in there, and my wife worked at the New Yorker too, and had been working in the New Yorker Festival and met him at one point. So we were there, like we had a night to spend at this hotel before we drove further south. And there was right across the road, there was a $1 movie theater place that showed old movies for $1. So we went across there. We're like, oh, well, let's watch something, just, whatever. And there was a remake, I think, of the Body Snatchers, the old movie, and it wasn't very good, but we were like, oh, let's just see, it's $1. So we're walking in there, and we're like, the only person I know that lives in Bangor is Stephen King. Yeah, me too, huh? That might be crazy if we saw him. And sure enough, we see him in the parking lot walking into the movie. And my wife was like, yeah, that's him right there. And so I think I was the brave one, and I said, hey, hello, Mr. King. We were both at the New Yorker, and my wife met you at the New Yorker Festival. And he was very nice. And then, how is the New Yorker, that kind of thing. And then he walked in, and turns out we were in the same movie theater watching this terrible movie with him. And he was like 3 rows ahead of us, 5 rows ahead, fairly far ahead. And there was not very many people in there. And he was reading the whole time. He had like some novel.
He was probably writing.
Yeah, well, that too, probably. And like until the previews were done, then we saw him kind of fold up his book, and we watched this terrible movie together. And at several moments in the movie, he just laughed out loud, just just erupted. Like, I don't know. I guess it was the corniness of it, the badness of it, but that was a fun.
Yeah, I'm sure you could see it all coming. I mean,
yeah. And I ended up working with him in a remote way. I illustrated did some illustrations he did a collector's edition of The Dome, or what was it called? I think it was The Dome, that they turned into a TV series. Anyway, they did like a limited edition collector's edition.
Cool.
And had me draw the 27 main characters sort of as chapter illustrations, and they did like, I think a deck of cards with them or something. But anyway, I got to be on emails with him, which was pretty fun. I didn't bring up having ever met him before, but he said something great that I cherish always, and it's a nice reminder for all of us that do this kind of work. He said, something to the effect of, if I could do what you do, I would just stay home all day and draw. It's like witchcraft. Which is pretty wonderful.
Instead of stay home all day and write.
Yeah, he would draw, I guess. I'd rather do what he does, to be honest.
Matt, I want to ask you about you almost being the host of the Prairie Home Companion.
Yeah, that is not true at all.
Because I was very excited to hear this, and I didn't know much about it, but I had known Garrison Keillor vaguely. I'll share that in a moment. But
there are some truths behind this. When I was in New York for about a year and a half, I put together this show called the Steam Powered Hour, which was a monthly comedy and bluegrass music sort of live show out in Brooklyn. That music is the kind of music I love and grew up with. And I also love hee-haw and also kind of hate hee-haw. So the idea was like to sort of update hee-haw and call it, hip-haw, hipster hall. I don't know what it was, but I would have like really legit bluegrass musicians and great comedians come on, and we would just do comedy and bluegrass, and it was pretty fun for a while. But through that, I met a guy named Chris Thiele, who is a mandolin player of some repute, mainly for a band called Punch Brothers, and he was the guy who replaced Garrison Keillor, changed the name to something else, and now I think that show is done. But when he took the job, we had some conversations about me writing for him, and it never just didn't come together. But so that's part of it. And I also do know Garrison Keillor a little tiny bit. He has apparently one of my originals in his apartment. I knew some of his family.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I actually attended. This is a similar thing. Just to talk about writers for a minute and how obsessed maybe they are with like working and reading and writing. I went to a play that his daughter was in, and he was sitting there writing this time the whole time until the curtain fell and it got too dark for him to write. He was just writing. And I know, from reading his stuff that, he writes all the time, and doesn't, like I sometimes get precious about like, oh, I got to be in my studio. I got to have my coffee. I got to have my proper pencil and my yellow legal pad. He's like, don't do that. Be the kind of writer or creative person that can do their work anywhere with kids screaming or on the train or anywhere. You'll be better off.
So you've actually got a chance to sit and talk with him then. That was fun.
A tiny bit. Yeah. He would not remember me or know me at all.
Same thing with me. I went to a show and he knew I wanted him to write the intro to my book, my bookstore book. And we were corresponding through email. And then he called me on stage for one of his tapings. And then I went backstage to see him and he was yelling at everyone. He goes, really? I want everyone to get out. And he's wearing this bright red suit and red sneakers. And he's really eccentric. Even during the performance, he was amazing how he memorized all the lines while everyone else was really intent on the script and the paperwork. And he was able to ad lib. And it was just so impressive.
Yeah.
And then backstage, he was getting flowers. And there was a crowd of maybe 20 people. And he was yelling, everyone out. And he goes, not you, Bob, come back here. And he cleared the room so I can talk with him. And we talked comedy for a short time. And we just had that one talk. And then after the show ended, we never kept in touch again, unfortunately. But I always really admired his work and stuff. And I was just so excited when your name was vaguely attached to the prospect of maybe working on the show. And I just wondered what happened. So,
yeah, I mean, in some ways, my sensibility certainly matches there. And I've worked in and around that show. And
Bob does sound effects.
Yeah.
He would have been great on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
everyone I know, musicians that have been on the show, just say great things about Garrison, about his ability, just what you're talking about, like his ability to put that show together and to write it, up to the last minute. And yeah, I'm as well.
And I wanted to know what you thought of the new show, because the new show did lack that special intimacy that he brought.
Yeah, I didn't listen to it that much, but I think Thiele leaned into his, really, really amazing musical sort of taste and Rolodex. It became more of a music show than it became.
The writing part left. I mean, it wasn't there anymore.
They still did comedy, but it didn't have that warmth or that. But honestly, some of the Prairie Home Companion stuff, you like it not because it's funny, but because it's just nostalgic. And
no, it's true, because when I worked at Land's End, he would come in every year to put on a show because we sponsored him, and it was like 3 of them. I don't know which 3, and he just sat there and did his whole spiel without a script.
Yeah,
and he would go into launching these monologues and look at his nails as he did his monologues.
Yeah. Those Lake Wobegon things, apparently he was.
Yes. And I tried to get him to do a button-down shirt, original Oxford button-down shirt spread for the catalog as the voice of Guy Noir.
Yeah.
So I had to set up for him. I said, just write like you're Guy Noir, and you need a shirt that can really take it. And he sent this thing back to me. It says, like, when I'm playing Guy Noir, I go, no. So I was trying to correct Garrison Keillor.
Yeah.
And he said, no, Michael, just take it like it is.
Yeah.
So,
well, you're in the right.
He didn't take direction well. I'm sorry.
But he was like the Mark Twain of our generation, I thought.
Huh. I'd say so. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I don't know who else it would be.
Um,
Michael's waiting for us to mention his name.
Oh, who?
Yours.
Oh no, you mean
yeah.
yeah, I got to throw Mr. Thurber in there somewhere, but he was just he would never make it out of the cab alive. So
Michael, I was trying to reach Thurber last night. I have a book. It's a collection of great American humor.
Right.
And I tell you, I'm too stupid to get into it. It has all the people we all know, like Peter Benchley and these other people who I'm supposed to admire, but somehow or another, it goes over my head.
I don't think it's that. It's that the tempo and the sensibilities back then are so different than they are now that it's like if you read Twain is not an easy read.
Well, Matt, I'd like to know who you're reading. And I know you and me both share a real admiration for Dimitri Martin and his books.
Yeah. Well, going back to what you guys are saying, sort of that old voice, I don't know if you guys know him, but S.J. Perlman.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic. Anyway, but yeah, it hasn't aged well, but at least as far as like making you laugh out loud, but it's still beautiful writing anyway. So yeah, Dimitri is fantastic, I think. Turned out to be a really good cartoonist. Which doesn't surprise me really, because his brain works in jokes that are very concise and specific. So, yeah.
Yeah. And what makes you laugh?
He's not like a trained artist or anything, but he draws in a very simple way that actually works perfect with the cartoons. Some of the cartoons are in fact about how simple his drawings are and open to interpretation because they're not realistic.
Yeah, he was asked to submit to the New Yorker, and he came in, and he submitted batches briefly. Bob asked him to come in, but then Bob didn't buy any. And then I came in when Emma came in, he did sell a cartoon, but I don't know if he submits on a regular basis. But I know that he did try to submit with the new regime.
Yeah, I can't imagine that. I can't imagine not buying, because I've seen his books of cartoons, and almost every one of them I would be proud to have done. So I don't know. I don't get it. I mean, the rejection at the New Yorker is that it's not about quality. I had to learn that a long time ago. There's so many different factors. You can't take it seriously in a way, because it's you're whatever it was. Mankoff used to say he saw 1,000 cartoons and would pick 12. I mean, there's got to be more than 12 good ones in there. And so if he's only picking 12, what are his reasons for picking certain ones and not others? It's
weird. I mean, to me, the system is broken. If my best work, which goes into a folder that says A work on my computer screen, and it's only being seen by two people, the cartoon editor and my wife, and then my B work is work that, gets seen on Facebook, and people see my worst work. The public sees my worst work, but no one sees my best work. And to me, there's something wrong with that system. Yeah,
there's some sort of reason why we sell cartoons sometimes, but that's not related to the quality. It's just sort of like, oh, we haven't bought one of Diffee's in a while. It's probably time. And so then they end up picking something from a weaker batch than last week when I was hitting it.
I think that's sort of my theory. Is like you become a planet, and the farther out you're in the orbit, that's when you sell.
Yeah.
So when your turn comes around.
Well, I'll tell you a story about this. When I was doing that Time magazine thing, the editor and the art director and I used to go through my sort of winnowed down choices. And I would, basically show them the cartoon and read the caption to them. I tried to present them as well as I can present a cartoon. And I remember there was one from Zach Cannon, and it was a great cartoon, and I don't remember the specifics of it, but in the cartoon, he used a name like Carol, and it was like, blah, 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 Carol, blah, 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 whatever the joke. It was funny. We all laughed at it. And then we kept going through cartoons. And then when we came back to make the final decisions, we talked about that cartoon, and somebody in the conversation said, I used to know a woman named Carol, and she was blah, 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 and then she got terribly sick. And she told this little 30-second story about somebody named Carol who got some terminal disease and died. And then I was like, okay, so how about this cartoon? And everyone was kind of like, And we didn't buy that cartoon, which I thought was a great cartoon. And I think it was just because of that weird little moment we had where the name Carol brought up a bad memory. That's the kind of thing that I think really does happen. Maybe not, maybe not exactly like that, but just like people are distracted, and when they're looking, when your best cartoon happens to come up,
darn you, Carol.
Yeah, darn you, Carol. Rimnick is getting a text about, something important to him, and for half of his brain is gone, or and there's also
you seen the video where they take up the ones that are holding, and they'll take it up to the meeting, and they'll go like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Wait, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes.
I don't know if that's just for the camera or what, but I mean, there is some sense of that really being the case. And so that's why I was always just trying to take it impersonally. But right. It's hard to do that. It's impossible, in fact. And, it's your best stuff and your work, and you can try to bring it back and try to sell it again. But I don't know.
Yeah. What's the famously, one of my favorite cartoons of yours is the dog chasing the people in the balloon.
Yeah.
Go home, Rex.
Yeah.
How many times did you submit that one?
I don't remember.
I think
I can tell you it was 112 times.
No, yeah. Matt, you told me 5 times at one time. And the reason why you told me is because it's the only cartoon taped to my computer. I love that cartoon so much that I had it up as sort of a bar.
The No Rex, Go Home Rex?
Yeah. And you and me had a conversation about that cartoon a long time ago. So maybe,
remember, you would remember. But I did sell I would say at least half of my cartoons I sold as resubs. And if anyone's out there, I guess this is all for cartoonists. I don't know who's listening, but that's when you bring a cartoon back from a previous batch, either months or years previous, and then they look at it again kind of fresh, hopefully, and they buy it. So half, at least, I would say, of my cartoons were sold as resubs, which is fine. I mean, that they for some reason missed that week because they had already filled the quota of 12 or 15, or it wasn't your week to sell, or somebody was thinking about their friend Carol who died, or whatever reason that didn't sell that week. So then you bring it back. That's part of the process. You winnow it and you realize this one was good. I'm bringing it back. And that's legit, I think. But I did sell a ton of cartoon ideas. Some of my favorites of my own, I had to I bring back many times.
Well, you said who's listening? I hope John Grimes.
Yeah. John Grimes, where are you?
Oh, wait, I got a telegram here.
Yeah.
Yeah, a telegram.
John Grimes says, love the show. That's it. I mean,
thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Matt, I feel now you get to a point where as you see a lot of cartoons and different things, the way you approach them changes so much. In the same way, like I watch baseball, and there came a point in which I could no longer root for teams and these strangers making millions of dollars. I lost interest in sports. With cartoons, I lost interest in a cartoon not saying something. Like I needed to have like meat on the bone, and you get to a point that I don't know, like how many interracial couples from Williamsburg talking about inside versus outside dining. Is that enough? Or do you really want to, in my case, all the cartoons have to be about global warming or Black Lives Matter or something with some meat on the bone, because you just feel like, I don't know if anyone else shares that feeling, but that's where I'm at.
Well, that's certainly a kind of cartooning, but I never sought to do that necessarily.
Okay.
I think it's hard to be earnest and still poke fun, to have that sense of silliness that you need. I found it really hard, like to have a message and deliver a joke. Anytime I delivered a message, it was a nice accidental bonus. You know what I mean? Like I was always sort of trying to get a joke, and then I was like, oh, that kind of makes a point too. That's nice. It was never the other way around. And the few times that I've tried to do it in the other direction, I was not able to come up with a gag that I liked. But I mean, different people, I've come to just like accept there's tons of different kinds of cartooning. I'm like more of an old school gag guy, where there's like a puzzle that you have to figure out, and you have to look, wait, what? Look at the picture. And there's that 5 seconds, not more than that, hopefully. But then people go, oh, aha, there's that aha sort of. That's a kind of cartoon, and I think the New Yorker has definitely done that. But there's other kinds too that are more just sweet or poetic, or political or whatever, angry, there's all kinds of work, and they don't all have to be like mine.
No, I find myself in this place.
I'm teaching my son, like when he tastes new food, you just, instead of saying, ugh, you say, it's not my favorite. And I've come to say that about a lot of cartoons and art and movies and everything, instead of being a critic, because God, that's so easy. And God, I hate them. Like keyboard critics, everyone hates everything. It's so easy, but it's not my favorite.
Saying I hate critics is pretty ironic. I'm just going to point that out.
Yeah, critics are the worst. I give them 2 thumbs down.
No, I got this way, I think, because I spent a year watching documentaries. I mean, that's all I did for a year. And I got so politically charged after watching all of these like documentaries about the planet. You get so like sensitive to these issues. And then I don't get away from it when I sit down at the table.
Well, it's great. There's bound to be outlets that are really focused on that you can send cartoons to. I don't know. I mean, the New Yorker has gotten seems like it's gotten way more political in the last few years too. And it's funny because my best years were during the Gulf War. Yeah.
And once that went away, I go like, oh man,
they
took my war away.
I'm a guy who grew up in Texas and all that implies, and then lived in Manhattan and now Los Angeles and all that.
So you have to realize the kids that were 15 years old watching Bart Simpson are now in their mid 50s.
Yeah. Isn't that depressing?
And when you said you went to LA, when I learned that years ago, I assumed that you were going to try to do like animated cartooning, or that would maybe be something, because I was like sort of entertaining the idea of like where to go next. And for me, it was to work on scripts and try to do something with TV. And so I figured, that seems like a really smart move. So is that something you thought about?
Well, that would have been a smart move, but I also came to LA to have a kid. So at the same time, I kind of retired in a way and just been a dad, which has been wonderful. But I dabble out here. There's a whole bunch of people who make good money. I mean, I'm not one of them, but working in television and film that you never see, projects that never get made, but they get paid tons of money, or, just working on it. So, and I've done some of that. I've pitched some stuff and been involved in some stuff that didn't make it through the gauntlet, which, oh God, if you want to talk about a crazy business, I mean, cartooning is pretty straightforward and simple compared to LA. It's frustrating and annoying. So I only do it as little as I have to, but all my friends out here are in animation or in comedy writing or something. So I tend to get pulled into some things. It's fun. It's fun to do it for a while, but it never turns into anything. Not for me yet, at least.
And are you still doing the chapter for LA for the
I'm NCS? Not in charge of that anymore. Yeah, I was for a couple of years. I was the president of the LA chapter of the National Cartoonist Society, and we did a ton of stuff. But it got to the point where it was taking up more of my time than I had like a 3-hour workday as it was, being a stay-at-home kind of dad, and just by choice wanting to be involved in my kids' life. I mean, I had kids late so that I wouldn't have my career in the way on purpose. So I only have like a 3-hour workday, and when an hour and a half of that is spent coming up with stuff for this cartoonist chapter, I had to let it go. And then as we were trying to debate who was going to pick up the reins and take it off, then COVID hit. So I don't know what's going to happen in the other
Bob is good friends with the president. So, hey, Bob, can you?
I'm tight.
Yeah.
I know.
Matt, if you do want to do any more cartoons, there's a guy on the Zoom meeting who would gladly give you some space on the Weekly Humorous. He does the humor site Weekly Humorous. If you said you would like to have a dedicated space of Matt Diffee, I'm sure we could probably twist his arm.
That could be cool. Yeah, I would enjoy it.
Please, absolutely.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Oh, it's practically no pay, but I have no standards whatsoever, and you could just send me a cartoon and I would just put it up.
What a sales pitch!
That would be the way it would go. So it wouldn't be...
Matt, your characters can smoke.
Yeah.
What?
Yep. Think about that.
You can have your gaunt cowboy.
Yeah, cowboys have to smoke. It's good for their timing, they need.
You want a smoking angel? Put a smoking angel in there. I don't care. I love it.
Smoking cowboy angel.
Mm-hmm.
I've done some gags like where the halo is a cowboy hat. It just never worked for me.
Matt, you could finally show that Mexican standoff. What happens like 10 seconds later?
Yeah.
After Trudy brings that coffee.
Yeah, that was one of my favorites. I just mentioned Pete Holmes, but he just texted me the other day. He was making coffee, and he was like, "How's that coffee coming?" We talked on his podcast a long time ago about the importance of they changed it. I think I can't remember the story even anymore. I can't even remember my own stories, but the way I sold the cartoon was like a bunch of guys standing in like a business meeting with handguns pointing at each other, or three guys, I guess, in a triangular Mexican standoff. And the guys on his intercom, the boss kind of guy behind the desk, is saying, "Trudy, how's that coffee coming?" Meaning that he had ordered the coffee, and then they found themselves in this gunplay situation, and the coffee would probably fix it. It would probably. Right. So he's saying, "How's that coffee? That coffee I ordered, a while back."
That sounds very Reservoir Dogs.
But wait, there's more. It gets worse before it gets better.
They changed it. The New Yorker somehow along the way changed it to "How's the coffee coming?" Trudy, how's the coffee coming? Which is it's subtle, but it makes all the difference. And Pete was one of the few people at that time that I could really get into this about. And he was like, "Yeah, it makes all the difference. Jokes that are important. The syllables, the proper word choice, and all that stuff." Pete did call cartoons for a while for the New Yorker, for a short while, and he was like, "I can't take this rejection."
Oh, I remember him saying into a room of cartoonists, "Wake up." That's what he says, "Wake up. Do you guys understand that nobody here is known outside this room?"
Yeah.
And then he just made my walk home so sad. Yeah. And I had seen his cartoons, and I actually would like to invite him on the podcast because I don't know if he'd like to talk about cartoons, because at some point he said I had him, get it out of my system and move on. But I did help him get Larry Miller on his show.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I think Pete was totally right though. Right.
Yeah.
He was like, you guys don't have to do this to yourself. You don't have to be like, having this kind of rejection, because at some point, the rejection should turn into trust. You should be like, yeah, this guy knows what he's doing. He's been doing it for a decade or whatever. And we bought a bunch of cartoons from him. He might be right that these are good cartoons. So, I mean, that never happens at the New Yorker. And that's just,
no, maybe I get that on your tombstone. I might be right.
Right. But it happened because the New Yorker grew up out of a world in which there were 20 other markets.
Right.
And so you didn't have to buy all of somebody's stuff, but they still have that mentality that, I don't know where I'm going with that, but if the trust were there as you went further on, it would have been a nice thing to end up being there as a career. And those days, no one's going to ever be a cartoonist at the New Yorker more than 5 years, because there's no longevity.
Yeah. There's only one household name, in my opinion, is Roz.
Yeah.
And the thing is, to me, isn't it a little bit like Groundhog Day, where you wake up the next morning and you're starting off the same place as everyone else. So you built up no collateral to say, I've been in, for me, it was 50 times, small amount, but I'm starting off exactly the same as someone who hasn't been in the magazine or even in that office yesterday.
Yeah.
We're all starting off exactly.
It should be that way in some respects. I mean, creatively, you should, sit down and work just as hard and have just as blank a page as you start. Creatively, you start over every week coming up with the gags. But yeah, there should be something, but I also don't think it should be complete. It should be, because you don't want people aging out and still doing cartoons that aren't relevant, because that was the case when I came in at 30. There were some older cartoons who just had never, hadn't watched a stand-up comedian in 30 years, they didn't know any of the comedy on TV. They'd just gotten out of step. They'd slid out of step. And that's going to happen to us too. And I hope it hasn't happened, but maybe it has. So
Bob,
tell forever. It should just be like in your 40s and 50s, maybe you should be like hitting it with all your might. And then, maybe 60s. I don't know when it happens. It depends on how fast.
I'm leaving now. Bye.
Yeah.
Bob, tell Matt your Moses cartoon.
The UFO one?
Yeah. You gave it a
Moses and UFOs.
Yeah, I'm just going to say that you were just describing Michael's career.
Yeah.
But I mean, by choice, I was done. I'm happy to be done. And let these young whippersnappers take over and reinvent what we started. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, but I will share this. I'm in touch with a lot of people who really miss you and your work.
Well, I would like to still be there, and I probably should keep submitting cartoons. If I could talk to Emma about, what I kind of want to know is like, how many times are you going to run me? You're going to run me 8 times this year? Let me give you 8 batches. Are you going to run me 20? I'll give you 20 batches. And she'd probably be open to that. She's pretty cool. All my conversations have been good with her. But right now, yeah, like I said, I'm focused on children's books and some other stuff and just raising a child of my own.
Yeah.
But that would be a much, already it's much more civilized, because she doesn't demand that you send in 10 a week, which used to be the sort of the pressured number that you had to come up with.
Yeah. Bob just had that sort of arbitrary.
One time, Eric Lewis, when I was there, came in with 2 tunes, 2 cartoons with that. And we gave him the hardest time. We called him 2 Tunes Lewis all day. But now you can just do 2 tunes if that's all you got.
Yeah.
That week.
Well,
that makes more sense.
Well, Matt, I actually just heard from Eric a couple of days ago. He says he's considering submitting again.
Yeah, well, that's why we all are. We're like, oh, I kind of want to get back in. But then as soon as you start thinking about it, you're like, no, I don't really want to do that.
But see, one thing you said earlier was that you work, you're disciplined to how you work. But I will say that a lot of people work that hard. I know people like Michael Maslin who puts in the hours, and they're very structured and how disciplined they are. But there are a lot of people out there who do not put in as much time. I mean,
really?
It all depends.
I don't know any. Even the young people I know are working hard at it, harder than we think and harder than we're giving them credit for, I think.
There's some people who do not need to, or they don't do it the same way. I know that it ranges, and I know that you work so hard at it, because I remember things that you said about cartooning, where you said the first half an hour or hour that you're putting down ideas are usually just to loosen up the muscles and get out all the cliches and all the junking and all the hack cartoon ideas before you get to the good stuff.
Yeah, just to really get the gears going to where you kind of lose track of your own self. That's the zone that I always wanted to get into. It's sort of like being in sports, where you're like, half an hour goes by and you're just so into playing this game that you're not aware of every moment. You're not aware of how you look. I've gotten into points where I'm doing cartoons, and it's in that last hour, I like drool on the page, because I'm so like, and that's when it's really flowing, and it takes a while just to get out of your mind.
Yeah, it's true. It's same with ideas, like the ones that sell you, like, where the hell did that come from?
Yeah.
And why didn't it show up 2 days ago?
Yeah.
When I started trying to do this.
That's why you need that just sort of open time, in my opinion, to
I call it working through the dreck.
Yeah. But I think this is what I think. The newer generation are accepted quicker. Like, they don't have to do 2 years of submitting anymore. And I'm not sure that's a bad thing, by the way. That's probably a good thing. But I think they're working just as hard on their batches as all of us.
I think some of them definitely are. I know some are, and they deserve to get in. Yeah. But it's a mixed bag. And I'm not talking about just young newbies, but even the older guys, it's a mixed thing. How much time they put into the batches. And it's reflective in a lot of the work as well. I mean, your batches, I remember your batches being really solid. There's some people's batches you go through and you say, there's not one bad cartoon here.
Yeah.
Perfect case is
always that for me. I remember seeing some of Cypress's batches, and I was just like, every one of these is great, or at least good, just a solid job.
For me, it was Frank Hoffman.
It only took him 20 years to get in.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's an example. Like, that's a different time when he was, he was selling maybe to other places in the meantime, but now there's no other places. So if you don't get in fairly soon, you would quit, I imagine. I don't know.
Or do a podcast.
Yes, or having a very impressive Facebook page.
The only thing I regret about the new thing is that there's not going to be like career cartoonists anymore. That seems sad, but it's a thing you do for a couple years, or you get 2 or 3 cartoons in and then you go do something else. That's a shame. I don't know how to fix that problem though.
Well, I want to thank you for all the time you took for here. I want you to be able to finish that children's book and let you go.
Yeah, I've got some illustrations to do.
But it was really great to see you, and I'm sure a lot of the people who have been saying hello to you are going to enjoy hearing from you.
Yeah, well, I will tell them hello through the power of podcasts. Hi, guys. I miss you all. I wish we could get together in New York or anywhere. Those were good times.
Matt, where can we see your work?
I have a website, but I guess most of my stuff is at Cartoon Collections. What's at my website that would be worth? If you want to sign up for my newsletter, you'll find out about workshops I'm teaching every now and then. The Rejection Collection reboot is going to come out probably a year from now, I guess. Where else? I've got a Moth story. I've got a TED Talk, TEDx Talk. That's like the second tier TED Talk.
They're both good.
Thank you.
I'm a fan.
I don't know. Hopefully in children's book section soon.
That'd be great.
You know, you should pitch to Bob Ross, Empire. They need a replacement guy.
Yeah,
you could do like happy cartoons, or you could do painting.
Yeah.
A little
palette knife, a little more than I'm familiar with.
Fan brush.
Oh, the mighty fan brush.
Just beat the devil out of that thing.
Yeah.
All right. So, Michael, how great was that?
That was greater than great. That was like pulling out a 2-pound crappie.
Okay, we're going to end it on that note. Perfectly put. Let me just say, everyone, stay well, stay funny, be cool, and stay in school. Until the next time at the Cartoon Pad, be well.